Screams are effective alarm clocks by Speak Easy Here. I had indulged a little too much over Christmas. The constant eating and drinking was beginning to take its toll on my body. This was the final night, I told myself, as I stumbled back to my house from the local pub. I fumbled with my keys for a little while, struggling to comprehend how to open my front door. My stomach began to rumble as I entered my flat. I attempted to remain as quiet as possible so that I did not wake up the neighbors. They already hated me enough. I was like a bull in a china shop though, stumbling and knocking over anything in my way. I looked around and sighed. The mess that surrounded me was an embodiment of everything that was wrong with my life. This place was falling apart at the seams. The walls and carpets covered in dirt, the windows to the front room that never closed, flapping open and shut in the wind. I had to get out of this place. The city was slowly killing me. I finally reached the kitchen, the old refrigerator humming loudly in the corner, like a mating call to my stomach. It had my attention. I knew there was pizza inside there. I opened the fridge, and even in my state, the rancid smell made me gag. I removed the out-of-date pizza from the fridge and placed it in the oven. The oven was something else entirely. It looked like it had not been replaced since the flat was built. The grill and one of the hobs was the only thing that still worked. I chose the grill, but I was drunk enough to consider the hob for a little while. I stumbled out of the kitchen towards my bedroom, intent on watching a film. The next thing I knew, I was somewhere else entirely. I was outside, or maybe I was inside. I'm not sure. I felt suffocated, and in an endless sea of gray surrounded me. It was as if I was in the middle of a cloud. I walked for what seemed like an eternity, but nothing changed. I was still stuck in this gray cloud-like place. I could barely see a few feet in front of myself, and it was so silent they could hear a pin drop. It made this place even more unnerving. The sky above me eventually opened up a little, and a beautiful deep red shone through the grayness. I stared at it in silence for a little while, not being able to understand what was happening or where I was. And then all of a sudden, a blood-curdling scream broke through the silence. It echoed all around me. It was as if it was coming from inside of me. The noise overcame me, and I fell to the floor, shielding my ears. Once the screaming stopped, I shouted back into the endless void, but received no response. I pulled myself back to my feet, telling myself that this was all a nightmare. I started to walk further and further into the gray, quickening my pace with each step, until I was full-on sprinting. I was desperate to get out of this place. There was something very wrong going on here. The screams soon echoed around me once more. These ones were worse. There were multiple screams this time, and they felt as if they went on forever. They were getting louder and louder by the second, each scream filled with more pain than the last. I stopped for a moment and listened to the screams. They were pleading and begging for help. I began running again, not sure if I was running away from the screams or towards them. I kept running further and further into the void until I finally stopped and broke down. I shouted with tears running down my cheeks, asking what they wanted. The screams continued begging for help. I could tell that this was not directly aimed at me, but anyone who would listen. I could now hear the sound of a siren far off in the distance. I curled up in a ball on the floor and prayed for this all to stop. I begged for this to end. The nightmare did eventually end, but the screams were much worse when it did. I will always blame myself for the mistake I made that night, and those screams begging for help will always stay with me. The screams of my neighbors, the ones that were not able to get out of that burning building alive.